Hello and welcome to 2025, everyone. I'm so excited to be back with all of you and welcome to the Africam show. Oh, isn't this nice? Look at this little baby. Hello, little one. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm still adjusting to the new year and I'm trying to remember what the name of mum was here at Founders Lodge, but I'm sure that Kirst will help me. And of course, I need to remind you all that we're live and interactive, so please send through questions and comments. Let me know how you're doing. Let me know how you're enjoying the show. How was your New Year's Eve? How's your 2025 going? Is it going as good as Mandy's? Yes, that's the name of mum. Thank you very much, Kirst. Oh, look at this little headbutting. That is the most affectionate headbutt I've ever seen in my life. And the cutest little rhino butt, too. I think this is probably the nicest age for little rhinos. The first time that we saw this baby was probably, I'd say, the first time we saw it was probably about a month and a half ago. And when we saw it, it still looked pretty sizable. It was probably around 2 months old, and you can see that when we first saw it, it was kind of flat-faced. There wasn't any protrusion coming off the nose, and now we can see this little horn growing. And all that energy and curiosity is definitely testing mum. I think mum wants to make a move. Little baby's like, no, I want to chill. And why not? It's kind of been pretty overcast in many spots across South Africa. I'm sitting in Johannesburg at the moment and it's pouring down with rain and has been over the last couple of days. The same when I was in KwaZulu-Natal just a couple of days ago. Lots of rain, and as you can see here in the Eastern Cape at Founders, also nice and overcast. So what that means is good rain, lots of shade, and that's especially good for rhinos and other really large herbivores. Yeah, you get to stay moist and cool. You like that? I think this little one feels like it's a big shot, and you are. Of course you are. Hi, Zygote! You say rolling rhinoceros. I love a rolling rhinoceros. I think they're very well shaped in order to roll like a sausage. Amber Co, hi! You say you're so excited the Africam show is back. Well, we're really excited to be back too, and we're looking forward to everything that the cameras have to offer this year. As every single year starts here at Africam, you never know what you're going to expect. You never know what you're going to see, and the cameras never, ever, ever disappoint. So here's to our first show of 2025. And we couldn't start off better than a tiny little rhino giving itself a scratch, being full of energy, full of attitude. Ambiko, you also say that you're thanking everyone that makes these shows possible and allows you to see the wonders still all around us. And that it's snowing where you are, but you're ready with some hot coffee. Nice. I have a cup of tea today. See, I'm learning from you all. Usually I just fall flat and I have nothing except water. But this time I made myself a nice cup of tea. April Owl's in the house. You say good morning, everyone, and a happy new year. You're staying warm as the wind blows through my snow-covered woodlands. Oh, doesn't that sound romantic? With a cup of coffee by your side. Very, very nice. So here in the Southern Hemisphere, it's sunny, it's summer for us. And even though things are pretty wet in a lot of the country here in South Africa, it's still really warm. And all the plants are just loving it. How about you? I wish I knew all the rhino characters that we see here at Founders because they really are so special. You can see that this rhino has a monitor or a tracker. Looks very distinguished. And that one horn, that first horn, is very, very chunky. Yes, I thought you might be a male. Just had that look about you. Oh, thank you, Kirst. So Kirst told me that there is a male rhino called Rodney. Maybe this is Rodney? Oh, yes. We're gonna get some digging in. So Rodney's horn seems to have grown 25%. And that's the exact purpose of popping your head down into the mud and coating your horns with some nice mud or even some soil. And you see this kind of behavior in buffaloes as well. Why not accentuate your best feature? Gosh, I do like an eyeful of rhino butt as well. Bowl of kittens, you say you missed these shows? Well, I have too. Isn't this just a glorious start? It's almost as if he knows the camera is right here. And first he wanted to show us his best feature. And now he's showing us his second best feature. Bob from Kalamazoo's here too. You say good day, Trishala. Good day, Bob. Casper said, Ghost says, Happy Tuesday, everyone. I'm so glad to be back. You're enjoying hot coffee from a frigid Milwaukee. Oh, doesn't this just look like the time of its life? I almost want to jump in there. Sounds as if he's reminding us to take a few deep breaths. I love that we can hear him breathe. This mud is just perfect. It's the perfect consistency. It's fine grains, it's getting stuck all over his skin. It's liquidy enough to have enough movement to get into all those crevices, but sturdy enough to actually stick. I think this is perfect. Oh yes, get in there, get in there. I'm feeling very satisfied on his behalf. How would you feel if you were a rhino and you got this perfect mud? Oh yeah, time for a bit of a scratch against that rock. What do you say? That's another great thing. I mean, we've learned so much about mud bathing, dust bathing over our time watching these cameras. And I think one of my favorite things about them, or about this kind of behavior, and it's a strange thing because I have experienced it recently, is if you are really itchy. For example, say you happen to be staying in Durban for the last 2 weeks where there are so many mosquitoes, tons and tons of mosquitoes. And then you go to the beach and then you get sand on your legs. And then you just scratch yourself with that sand. Oh my goodness, it's definitely not good for us, the delicate skin of humans, but it feels so good. Some extra grit to really, really satisfy that itch. And animals get a similar satisfaction, I would imagine, from having this extra grit as they rub themselves against trees and really, really get a nice exfoliation and definitely a satisfying scratch. There we go. Oh, that must feel so good. Pi, you say he's huge. Yes, he is a bit of a chunker, but I wouldn't say he's bigger than Mandy. His horn is definitely bigger than Mandy's. So just earlier when we first came to Founders and we started the show, we saw Mandy and her little calf. And I wouldn't say that he's larger than Mandy, but he's definitely a sizable bull. And remember, he still has a bit to grow as well. So on average, rhino bulls are larger than the females. And visually, you can tell them apart just based on size. So I think that he still has a way to go. DANC, you say hello from Seattle and welcome back and happy 2025. Thank you very much. And so nice to hear all of your familiar names. April Ali. What more could one want out of a wildlife show? Mindy Tilapau, you say, I think so too. They are just living their best lives. And we get to watch this animal have at least what appears to us, but seems to take pleasure in doing something. It's not just something that is for survival in the strictest sense, but it's something that feels pleasurable. And I think that's always nice to see in wild animals. And also because we know that when animals are stressed, when times are tough, when there hasn't been rains, if there isn't enough food around, generally things like this are not on the top of their lists because survival takes center stage. And survival is always taking center stage. But when there's an abundance of resources, I feel that we see more animals being a little silly, being a little relaxed, chilled out, and really taking pleasure in the smaller things. This is kind of the equivalent of you filing and shaping your nails. As you would have heard, rhino horn and our nails are made out of the same type of protein, keratin. So it can easily be shaved or filed down. And there aren't nerves running through the entirety of a rhino horn. There are nerves towards the bottom where it's joining the face, but at the top there, about halfway through and up, maybe even a little bit more if there aren't any nerves. So he's not getting pleasure from this particular type of behavior. It's more kind of manicuring, shaping, sharpening that horn. Madison V, you say you're loving every minute of this. You know, it always, oh, these cameras always surprise us. When I sit here and I do the checks before we start our time with all of you, we go through the different cameras, we have a look, and sometimes it's so quiet. In fact, more often than not, I'd say 80% of the time, it's pretty quiet across all the cameras. And then suddenly, boom, as soon as we start and we go live and you're all on board, the cameras just deliver, as if they know when to put on a show. Oh, it's Jan Powers. Jan Powers says, very grateful to have you back live. We are very grateful to have you back, Jan. I had the wonderful pleasure of meeting Jan, everyone. And I always get so excited when I get to meet the people behind the name, you know? It always feels extra special when we all go back to our respective countries and homes, and then suddenly I see your name again. I'm like, I actually know this person now. It's very, very special. Hopefully, one day I'll get to meet more of you. Oh, hi, Karu. You snuck in here. I didn't even get to hear about your milk, or have you changed your diet for 2025? But you're pointing out that there's a lesser striped swallow calling. They absolutely love this weather, I feel. Lesser striped swallows. You can actually see them every now and then. Keep an eye out the orange breast and the blue. There, you can see them flying past. And out of all the reserves I've been to, I think the one that is quite close to Founders is the one that I've seen most of these lesser striped swallows at. So definitely abundant in this area. And for some reason, I see them most when it's overcast as well. All right, everyone, what do you say? Shall we move on to another camera? This one has been so, so good to us. And I know that we really enjoyed the rhinos, but I'm really excited to see a Goliath heron. So can we go over to Oliphant's River, please? And we'll come right back if the heron becomes boring. There we go. My goodness, I mean, the first time I saw a Goliath heron was on the camera. I can't even remember which camera it was, but I saw the Goliath heron and then I thought to myself, I really need to see it in real life. And then I finally got to see it at at Mabula in the Waterberg a couple months ago. Well, I'd say maybe about 6 months ago. I finally got to see it, and it was absolutely stunning and definitely worthy of the name Goliath heron. like most of these tall, wading waterbirds, um, I am not exactly towering over them. I've got a good 15 centimeters on the Goliath heron, though, which makes me feel better. But they are indeed very tall, about 1.4 meters tall. Some of them, of course, a little taller, coming dangerously close to Trishala sized. And they weigh about 4 to 4.5 kgs. Really, really wonderful birds. And very nice to photograph. Not that I took a photograph of them, but when I was with the Goliath heron, I just got too excited and forgot to take photographs. So even pull my camera out, honestly. And since then, I've seen a couple. It's like that, isn't it? Like you buy a blue car and then suddenly you see the blue car everywhere. I think birds are like that too, a little bit. I reckon it's on the hunt, as they always tend to be. But given their size, you can imagine that they can take some fairly large fish. That beak is just perfect for darting into the water. It's nice and streamlined. It almost looks like large forceps. Just be able to pluck fish out of the water. But there's plenty of other things that live near the water that are good size for a Goliath heron. Things like frogs, small reptiles that may be at the edges of the water. Occasionally, I'm guessing some small mammals too. Those unfortunate enough to spend too much time at the water's edge are definitely going to be attractive to any carnivorous bird, particularly the larger ones that can actually take that sized prey. Oh, I love that color. This belly, I guess, yeah, it is the belly. And the way that kind of, I know it's called rufous, but to me it almost looks like a purple rufous. Almost maroony. It matches so well with the back of the head. A really, really stunning bird. And the largest heron in the world. Kaoru, you say, yes, you do have milk today. Why? I definitely learned something in 2024. Yes, I kept that knowledge with me, Kaoru. And that iconic sound of the woodland kingfisher, signaling that yes, it's still summer. And yes, hopefully we'll still will get more rain. And look at the current here at Olifants. It's looking pretty strong. And one thing that I've been noticing across the cameras in general is that through the dry season, and even at the beginning of the wet season, all the edges of these areas, whether it was an edge of a dam or edge of the Olifants River, Han, they're pretty bare. At the most, they were spotty with vegetation. And then comes the rainy season and it just soaks everything, and suddenly It's just like a carpet of grass all round. And the best example of this is at Tau. If you have a chance, go and you haven't seen the Tau waterhole in a while, go over and have a look because it has just transformed. It's just a grassy mat now, and it used to be so bare. It's a wonderful thing to see. I know this sounds weird, but I think that I can smell summer looking at this camera. Anyway, thank you very much, Goliath Heron. You are stunning. Love your colors. Love your height. Love that you smell like summer and the wet season. But now we're going to go a little bit further north and a little bit east. We're going to head over to Lentora in Kenya and do some more birding. Nice, but look how different it is in terms of the weather. It's an African hawk eagle, everyone. Apparently it's been here for some time. Now this looks like the picture of summer. Golden light, clearish skies, a slight breeze. You can feel the warmth from this image. So weather patterns a little bit different here in Kenya compared to what we were experiencing further south in South Africa. You can see its mouth open. There we go. I wonder if there's another around actually. Almost every time I see them, I see one, and then inevitably there is a second. I don't think, in fact, that I've ever seen one completely on its own. I've seen a juvenile on its own, but not an adult. Look how heavy its breathing is. It must be pretty warm in this area for the mouth to be open, for the heavy breathing. It looks focused and scattered at the same time. So focused in the sense that it's clearly looking out for something, but it is getting easily distracted by many things going on around it. So like I said to me that this African hawk eagle has been here almost all of the afternoon. Did anyone see when it arrived, and if it looked okay when it arrived? There's nothing to be alarmed at. I just find it a little unusual that it would settle here for hours. Oh, oh, well done, Kirsten. She knows when to switch us back. Then we got Goliath Heron's gotten something. That something is quite a sizable fish. How interesting. I'm going to do my... Oh! And that's how it's done, guys. That was so purposeful. Picked it up out of the water to the side, to the edge of the water there, took a couple steps back, almost pulled back its neck like a spring, and then launched that forceps like beak with the sharp end right into the fish. Definitely that would have killed it. But you still need to get it down. Look at it. Pull back. And I must say, very accurate. Almost always hit the upper half of the fish. So that area would include the head and the gills. Give it a little rinse. Oh yeah, it's a barbel or a catfish. You can see the barbels very clearly at the front, just around the face. Many a time I've seen larger storks and herons doing a similar thing. They'll catch a fish and then they'll then stab it to ensure it's dead before they start eating. They might give it a little rinse, like we're seeing now too. But it always makes me wonder, why not take it further away from the water? Because surely by doing this so close to the water, if the fish is not dead, you're basically giving it an opportunity to run away. And every now and then I might see it. I've seen it with a saddle-bull stork where she pulled the fish and stabbed it. Oh, my goodness. Wow, that happened a lot quicker than I expected. I thought it was going to be fairly difficult. But anyway, my point being that maybe by injuring the fish and then dipping it closer to the water to then make the final few blows, they actually are able to get an idea or a better idea of whether the fish is actually dead or not. Because if it's in the water, maybe if it is a little alive, it's going to start wriggling. It can decide to put in more effort into killing the fish. If it's not wriggling, maybe no more effort is needed. So perhaps they're using the water body as an indicator of how much effort they've got to continue to put into that hunt. Wow, that was very interesting. That was so cool. Thank you so much for switching us so quickly, Kirst. Mindy, you want to know if they always swallow them whole? Generally, most birds will swallow these fish whole. Now, I think that I mean, there are circumstances, of course, when they may mistakenly break the fish in half, or break it into smaller chunks, but the aim is not to do that. Because speaking of indicators and using the water as an indicator, we know that fish have scales and spines in them, and we know that they're backward facing. So a lot of the time, birds are going to be using the head as an indicator of what the easiest way for that fish to go down is. So if they break it up into pieces, maybe that could become a little confusing, and they can't get the same kind of response that they would, or stimuli that they would, from having the head there to ensure that it's going down the right way. So generally speaking, whole is the way to go. It can slip down the throat very easily, well, as you saw, and very quickly. It kind of reminds me of, when you have to take a big tablet or like an omega-3 supplement, and for some reason they're just very big. Sometimes they're just right position that you take a drink of water and it goes right down, you almost hardly notice it. And other times, if it's not in the right position, um, well, it's just not as graceful, is it? And orientating the fish in the correct direction is really important to make sure that, one, they're not going to choke themselves. If there is a little bit of life left in the fish, it's not going to jump back out. And I know that sounds ridiculous, but I have seen that. I have seen, what was it? I think it was a gray heron, one of the smaller herons, and it had eaten a fish, but the fish was not quite dead, and I could see it move in its throat. And it just looked so uncomfortable because it was quite clear that when the fish went in, it was somewhat vertical. And then as it started to move around in the back of the mouth, entering the throat, it was quite obvious that it had become a little bit horizontal. And that must have been very, very uncomfortable. So getting that initial position right is important. There was even a time I saw, it was a thickney, a water thickney, and it had managed to find itself some kind of, I think it was a blind snake. It was very, very small, but it was very clearly a snake. At first I thought it was a worm because it was small and quite wriggly. But then the thickney obviously started to swallow this worm slash what I thought was a worm turned out actually to be a snake. But it had not killed it properly. And every time it would put it down its throat, it would come slithering back out. That's when I realized that we're actually looking at a baby snake here. And it really was forceful in pushing its way out. And even the thickney started to even close its mouth. But that snake was pushing through. And eventually, when it had its mouth closed and the snake quite clearly, or at least a portion of it was quite clearly in the throat, you could see it wriggling around in the throat. But then, one big gulp, and it was finally in its belly. And I still think that it was wriggling around in the belly as well. Well, I hope none of you had snacks while you decided to watch Africam show today. Awesome, you say that bird eats fish like you eat pizza. I'm glad there's someone else like me out there. Sometimes it's just so easy, So easy when you have the right type of pizza at the right temperature with the right pizza dough. It's all just easy. You can go straight down. And Karu, you say that makes perfect sense about the orientation of the fish and getting it down. Anyway, thank you, Goliath Heron. How about we head over to Namibia, to Safari Hook? We've got a Gemsbok. Oh, hello, you beauty. I think Gemsbok are one of my favorite antelope. They're so, so beautifully marked. And this taupe color has always been one of my favorites. They also, to me, look like they're wearing socks, which I do love. Now, Gemsbok, well, oryxes, I should say. This is a South African oryx, and it's also known as a Gemsbok. But oryxes are really well adapted to drier, more arid environments. And at the moment, what we're actually witnessing is it seems to be licking this rock. That's a great way to get some mineral supplements into your diet. I think it's far more effective to chew soil than it is to lick rocks, but animals will do both those things. The reason why I say chewing soil makes more sense to me is because the the particles are small. Well, not the particles, but the pieces of the soil, the actual exposed area of those tiny rocks that were broken down to make up the soil, there's more surface area there. So I think that you're able to extract more mineral that way. But if a rock smells a little bit, it smells quite salty and you can't get it in your mouth, then why not lick it? They are not dependent on water, which obviously makes them well suited to arid environments. And yes, there are other animals like that too. Springbok, one that we see often on the cameras, also very, very well suited to arid environments. Other things they learn to do is when to be active. Like predators, so predators, their bodies can heat up very quickly from other things, not necessarily just being in arid environments, but digesting meat, for example, raises your metabolic temperature. So, and they're quite active. So when they're hunting, they're physically chasing or ambushing prey. So that means that they're using up quite a lot of energy, and heat is a byproduct of that. So we know that predators prefer, or most predators, or a lot of predators prefer to do this at the crepuscular hours, so early in the morning, so at sunrise and sunset, and over the night, because it's cooler then. And Gemsbok or oryxes in general have also taken on this kind of behavior. So you see them most active during crepuscular hours as well. Now, apart from that, we know that they're not water dependent, but that they'll still need water or moisture or liquid in some form in their diet. And feeding early in the morning is a really good way to get that because or all kind of sits on leaves. Now, if you're feeding at that time, great way to get a little bit of extra moisture in. Not tolerant in times of low moisture. Yeah. And behavioral change are really because sometimes they in a changing environment. Maybe you say what you love about African antelope species is that they're handed, and this is a birds have fly house is a really cool an ostrich, a hollow, but I am gonna find out for you. Anyway, it's time to say Goodbye, everyone. Thank you all Thursday. And if you can't join us then for next,